So looking at this example, we've got our given. So we're given that AD and CD are congruent. We're given that ADB and CDB are congruent. We want to prove DB is a median. Okay, so let's think about what that means. That means to prove this, to prove median, I need to show B is a midpoint. Okay, to prove midpoint, I need to show that AB is congruent to BC. Well, those are parts of the triangle, so I can see where I'm going from there. So now I've got my idea. I'm going to try to prove a median, so I need to show it's a midpoint. B is a midpoint. I need to get that midpoint. I need to show those are congruent. To show these are congruent, I need to know the triangles are congruent. To prove the triangles are congruent, well, we need one of those 5 reasons. So now that I've got my plan, I'm going to get started. This is good because it gives me an idea of where I'm ending. AD is congruent to CD. Remember how we said you always want to know where you're going? Well, that's what that used for. Angle ADB is congruent to angle CDB. All of that is my given. Okay, so AD, let's mark that. I'm going to mark that in green. AD is here. CD is there. ADB, so that's this angle. CDB, that angle. So I've already got a side and an angle. One more part and I get my triangles are congruent. Well, that's not too bad because they both have DB as a side. So this is a pretty easy triangle proof. DB is congruent to DB by the reflexive property. Okay, so that gives me another side here. Well, that just happens to be side, angle, side, side, angle, side. So now I see my side, angle, side from steps 1, angle in 1, last side in 2. That proves that my triangle ABD is congruent to triangle. Name carefully. A matches C. B and B are together. D and D are together. Now from that, I know the parts are congruent. So now I know that these parts, AB and BC, must be congruent. Okay, so now I can say, great. Corresponding parts of these congruent triangles are congruent. So that means that AB is congruent to BC. And if that's true, well, then B must be a midpoint. Because a midpoint makes 2 congruent segments. So we had to use the definition of what a midpoint is. Now that I know that's a midpoint, again, back to my plan, now it's a midpoint, so now I have a median. So now I can say, oh, DB is a median to AC. And that's because a median connects a vertex to a midpoint. And that's exactly what we've done. We've gone from the vertex at D to the midpoint B. And I told it was a midpoint. Okay? So that's how we can go beyond CPCTC. So look out for things like that. We'll continue to practice on this. In fact, this is the last real video lesson of this unit. From here on out, we're just doing a lot of practice to prep ourselves for our test. All right, see you in class tomorrow.